Hi everyone, welcome to week 2 and chapter 2, where we will be discussing the measurement of health and disease. And as always, my PowerPoint is pretty short, sweet, and to the point. No sense wasting time on a bunch of unnecessary information. So I'm going to start with some terminology, and I'm going to skip around on this particular slide just a little bit because some things kind of go hand in hand. So the first term is demography, which is the size and composition of human populations. We then go to mortality, which is death rate. Mortality rate is death rate. The term mortality actually means death. And if we skip to the bottom of the page, one of those things that you hear commonly used together with mortality is morbidity, which is the presence of illness or disease, even if it's something minor like a cold or flu, or something major like cancer, diabetes, hypertension. So you'll frequently hear the term comorbidity, which means there is the presence of more than one illness or disease at any given time. Frequently, people may have a comorbidity of hypertension and high cholesterol. I don't know why high blood pressure and high cholesterol seems to, I don't want to say they go hand in hand, but frequently, if someone has one, they may have the other. We'll go back to life expectancy. So this is the median expected age of all babies born alive. And then the flip side of that is healthy life expectancy. So this is the number of years that you can expect to live without disability. I think this was an important term to note because we have so many medical advances and so much technology in play now that we are able to prolong life for quite a bit before or quite long after our body's expiration date. Um, Unfortunately, what frequently happens with that is we're prolonging life, whether it's our own or a loved one's, and not necessarily a healthy life or a good quality of life. So that's something ethically that we have to kind of ask ourselves, is prolonging life necessarily ethical when there is no quality of life attached to it? So we'll get more into that in future chapters, but bringing up life expectancy and healthy life expectancy kind of triggered that discussion. So then we addressed risk factors a little bit last week, and we're going to dive into them a little bit more this week. Modifiable health-related risk factors. So again, these go into lifestyle. Um, One of the most disturbing parts of this entire chapter to me was on page 28, figure 2-3. And I invite you to look at it and just, I want you to be perplexed by it. I want you to be amazed by it, that why is such a huge proportion of our risk factors modifiable? These are things within our own control. These are our diets, our exercise, our sleeping habits, tobacco use, alcohol use, drug use, um, things that we have complete control over. Um, I want to kind of provide a counterbalance to that. You know, some of these modifiable risk factors, such as, you know, diet and exercise, can contribute to or delay even the onset of um, morbidities like diabetes or high blood pressure. However, some of us do have a genetic predisposition towards certain diseases and illnesses, such as diabetes. It runs rampant in my family. My mother, who is now 72, was just diagnosed with it last year. That kind of spurred me into action and made me start questioning, wow, I've really not been paying attention to my diet. I haven't been exercising like I should. So using our predisposition towards certain diseases and conditions can kind of spur us into action and make us take charge of those modifiable risk factors as a result. Other risk factors are nutritional in nature, and this could be something, as I want to say, complex. It's not a simple fix, but it's lack of access to nutritional healthy food. It could be environmental factors. or exposures. If you think about those of us that live in the Treasure Valley, we do live in a bowl, we live in a valley, and we have these inversions every winter. They are definitely getting worse. When I was a kid here in the 70s, we didn't have them nearly as often. We had a lot more sunny blue sky days in winter than we do now. If any of you are skiers and you go up to Bogus, you can actually look down on the layer of gunk that's hanging over the valley. So that's definitely an environmental exposure. Another example of an environmental exposure could be sun exposure. Our summers, we're at a not necessarily a really high altitude, but relatively high. So we have a greater exposure to the sun, and therefore we have higher risks and higher incidences of skin cancer in the Treasure Valley and in Idaho overall. And then finally, risk factors could be these untreated medical conditions. And this brings up a really interesting point for me to discuss. The factor of biometric testing. Now, this is something that generally you will have done at your physical exam where the doctor draws blood and they send it in for testing. This can provide us with a wealth of information as to some of our risk factors and things that we may not have been aware of. I think it's really important to get it done. And just as an example, I'd like to share a little bit about an initiative that we're doing at Boise State where we encouraged and offered biometric testing to staff, faculty, as well as students. And it was amazing the amount of pre-diabetic and diabetic levels that we found in this population. And, these are people, young people, people age 19 to 22 that you would not think would have that type of diet or exercise habit that puts them at higher risk for diabetes. So it really is well worth doing if you have access to healthcare and if you have access to have this kind of testing done. Like I say, it's part of a normal physical exam, at least at my age it is. But I really do encourage you to do it so that you do know if there's anything underlying there, any untreated medical conditions, or any unknown risk diseases, or any unknown risk factors. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. And then finally, and again, as I will try to do, I will point out things that will be on some kind of test, whether it's a quiz or a final exam. This for sure will be. So classifying disease, we break it into 3 different categories. The first one are communicable diseases. So these are infectious diseases, colds, flu, HIV/AIDS, hepatitis, tuberculosis. These are things that can be spread by infectious agents, so germs, fungi, parasites. Then we have non-communicable diseases. So these are not contagious. These would include things like cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and neuropsychiatric disorders. So anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, all of these fall within non-communicable diseases. You can't catch them from being around someone who has one of these conditions. And then finally, injuries. Injuries are just like they sound. I think we all know what they are. You can suffer a muscular injury, a fracture, concussion. The list is endless, the number of injuries that can be sustained by the human body. Definitely some more serious than others. Bringing up a good point in light of our wintry weather lately, a lot of ice out there. I know the hospitals, ERs, and orthopedic doctors are seeing much higher than normal cases of slips and falls and fractures, even concussions. So please be careful if you're going to be out there. Be careful walking. If you can get some of those traction things to put on your shoes, which I think I'm going to invest in, please do so. But think about this. Really interesting reading this week. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. I think it starts really kind of getting into the guts of our subject in our class. And As always, if you have any questions this week, please feel free to use the Ask My Instructor link on Blackboard, or you can email me. Um, I hope to be a little more active on Blackboard this week. Last week, just, I don't know about the rest of you, but it just kind of threw me for a loop. It was a short week and a lot of stuff going on, so I wasn't as active as I had hoped to be, so I hope to rectify that this week. Everyone have a good week. Be safe, be warm, be dry, and I will talk to you all soon. Thanks.